Welcome to the Teaching Bites podcast. Here are your hosts, Fred and Sharon Jaravada.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Teaching Bites show, where we... Oh, sorry. I messed up, but I might keep it, but, that's okay. Welcome to the Teaching Bites show, where we share great ideas and amazing people to take your teaching to that next level. Today, I have a very special guest. We have Jennifer Gaspar-Santos. She's the Director of Technology and Innovation of St. Ignatius College Preparatory.
Oh, okay. Wait, sorry, Fred. Sorry.
Yeah.
Director of Edtech and Innovation.
Okay. Let's
Sorry.
Okay. Today we have... Wait, let me do this. Cool. Today we have Jennifer Gaspar-Santos. She is the Director of Edtech and Innovation of St. Ignatius College Preparatory in San Francisco, which us San Franciscans, we affectionately call SI, right? SI. How are you doing? Good morning.
Yep. Good morning, Fred. Thank you for having me.
Of course, definitely. I wanted to get you on the show because you are definitely a leader in the EdTech world, and you have a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas. I've seen you online. I've seen you over the years. Not stalking or anything, but
No.
but I've seen you. We run into each other and like very
Absolutely.
And like all these workshops and all of these conferences over the years. So it's pretty cool to have you with us. All right. So I gave a really, one sentence bio of what you do. Can you go ahead and share with our audience of what you do and who you are?
Yeah, sure. So what's funny is I feel like whenever I tell people what my title is, oftentimes it's the EdTech part. I feel like they understand and they totally get. And then it's the piece on innovation where they're like, what is that exactly? Like,
right.
What do you do? What is that? And the response is always funny because it's like anything from either like a snarky response all the way to they're just like completely just don't get it or don't know what it is.
Give us an example of a snarky response.
It was snarky response. Yeah. So one time I met, I won't say the school, but I went, just doing a meet and greet, which I usually like to do. I like to go to different schools and kind of get to know people in their tech department. And he asked, what's my title? And I said, Director of EdTech and Innovation. And he said, well, he's like, really? So tell me something when you like, he's like, well, what's so innovative that you've done? Like,
wow.
like it was just, like literally right after I shook his hand and,
wow.
And so it's one of those things, you have to hold your ground. And
mm-hmm.
what made me think about that and what made me realize what I realized from that conversation, other than the fact that that guy was, didn't have very good interpersonal communication skills, was that I think he just doesn't know himself what innovation means. And I think a lot of people are sort of struggling with that, when we say, like, our schools are so innovative.
Right.
Every single person that I always try to make it a point, like when I meet somebody that also has innovation in their title, like I actually go and I meet with them because I want to know myself, like, what do you do? Like, can I learn from what you all do? And it's anything from like, we host a book club at our school and that's what makes us innovative to people thinking about like sustainable farms or learning spaces. So the good news is, like, with my title, there's no definitive, this is what you do, and here's how everybody sees it. It's so different. And so in that way, I'm kind of crafting it and making it as true to what it means at SI as possible, as opposed to like, well, that's what, this is what I should be doing. So there's no rubric for this. So that's good. It makes me want to do the job that I do, for sure.
So how'd you get into this? How'd you figure this out? How did you didn't go to the traditional education. You didn't become a teacher and a classroom teacher. How'd you get into this? Yeah,
absolutely. So I actually started off in business. And my dad is an accountant. My mom works in the EKG department. So medical field, and my
Just
dad,
like all Filipino Americans, my parents were in the medical field and in business also, right? We're both Filipino Americans, and very similar. And I want your take on this because later on, that's another topic later on down this episode, but we'll talk about that later. But keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please do anytime. I love it. And I think like it's just like that Filipino thing, right? Like, you do something consistent, you do something that society needs, and you don't try anything different or risky because you have to provide for your family, right? And pay off all these college loans. So my dad was an accountant, and so I majored in business, went to a Jesuit school, went to Loyola Marymount, and was like, okay, I'm going to take all these accounting classes, and I was actually in a co-ed business fraternity.
Wow. Okay.
So I was, on this path to working at the Big Four.
Wait, what's a co-ed fraternity?
So the name of the fraternity is Delta Sigma Pi.
Okay.
And I loved it. Like I loved. Yeah, it's actually like I think back to how much that business background has prepared me now, like just networking and knowing things about like the brand and mission statements and things like that. So it definitely helped me. But after graduating was like I went to I did work at one of the Big Four as just like a intern and didn't like that experience at all. And I think I sort of self-sabotaged the situation because I didn't do very well. Like it was like like interns, the job entails doing these sort of like mediocre things, and I would just mess up the most innate, like make a photocopy of this, and I would like photocopy maybe half of it or something. Or I was in charge of, I worked at in the engineering department. I had to do accounts receivable, and so I had to like look at the number of hours and things, and like spreadsheets would be all wrong and things would be linked all off. So I think there was a little bit of a like my heart wasn't in it, and so I just didn't care too much to make sure I did such a good job. And so that's when I switched to education, which was actually by accident. I think when you graduate, you need like a certain number of work study hours because I was on a work study program. And my friend at the time was like, "Oh, you should go in the College of Ed. We need someone in the lab." Oh, wow. And I was always good with technology, so they put me in the lab, the College of Ed, and I got really close to the director of educational technology at Loyola Marymount.
Okay. And
she was like awesome. Like she was, always had teachers around showing them stuff, and I was like, "This is a really cool job." And she's like, "Well, if you're really interested, there's a master's program in this, so you could learn more and like be legit in it. Because if not, I could just, I had all this business background, but nothing in education. So I needed to get into it. So started looking into master's programs. I knew there was one at State. I knew there was one at Cal State LA, but I wanted to get out of Los Angeles and just I was in love with San Francisco when I visited just like with some of my friends in college. So, applied to the San Francisco State program for Edtech and just fell really like ass backwards lucky into this job as academic tech coordinator at my first independent school. And then after that, I've been in schools for the past 13 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Now, how did you what drew you into the computer stuff? What did you find fascinating about that?
In with Edtech, I think.
Were you always a technology kid? Were you into that?
Well, what's funny is when I majored in business, you can emphasize in something, and I wanted to emphasize on information systems and quantitative methods. So at the time, it was like the acronym was ISQM, and I remember my friends distinctly telling me like, "Oh, that's really hard." Like, and I wonder, or like that's only for like smart geeks or something. Like I remember there were a bunch of guys in the class and not a lot of girls. And one of my friends was like, "Oh, it's like really, really hard. Why would you want to do that? You should just do, major or emphasize in finance or something, or emphasize or major in like marketing or something."
Sales, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but when I went to my first class, I was like, "This is easy. Like I don't understand why people would think it was so hard." And
what was it? Math? I don't know what it is. Is it more like a math thing or systems analysis? What is that?
So it's a lot of data flow diagramming.
Data flow, okay.
It's a lot of like, how do you get value out of large amounts of data?
Yes, okay.
How does data flow through a business to produce like to make important decisions. How do you use data and make important decisions? And so it's not, I don't know, I think the human piece of it was appealing to me. And so that's why I've always had that, like, even though it's technology, there's always still that human piece component to it.
So last August 2017, there was a big, crazy thing happening with Google and their Google manifesto. One of their engineers wrote this manifesto about saying that women aren't biologically built for computer science and technology. What's your take on that?
Yeah. I think when the manifesto came out, it was also in the sort of spirit and climate of what's happening right now politically as well, right? And so I feel like that combined with where we are politically would just sort of sent me personally into like this, man, we are taking 5 huge leaps back. And the good thing about it was people were responding, right? And one of the open letters that I really loved was by Deborah Sterling, who's the CEO of Goldie Blocks. And I love the fact that she completely dissected his argument and broke it down. And she did it in a way that was really sort of respectful and gave him the option of apologizing for what he did. Now, I don't know what he did with that or whether or not he is going to do anything with that open letter. But I think what that told me was that this isn't one of those things that's going to get fixed overnight. But at the same time, I'm of the growth mindset. And I think that if somebody is offered the ability to see another side, they should take it. And it also spoke to this idea of like, you know, she talked about how it's such a huge stereotype threat, how it's such a huge way of perpetuating, like his letter completely perpetuated the stereotypes that are existing. And that made me sort of think about, you know, the work that we're doing here at Girls Who Code, like how the very existence of the club is to reverse that sort of stereotype that, you know, girls are imposters, that they can never learn how to code. And you know, this school traditionally started off as an all-boys school and went co-ed. You know, even though it wasn't fairly recently, it feels recently to me. It actually was in the 90s, I think.
And yeah, I was there.
Were you there?
Yeah, no, I wasn't there, but yeah, I remember that big time. Yeah. So, yeah, I was in elementary school. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm much
absolutely.
older than that.
And it was huge. It was huge. And I still feel, you know, it's a moving target. It's something that we're still working towards.
Right.
But, you know, one of the funny things that I always get when I tell people, you know, we have a Girls Who Code club, one boy raised his hand and he was like, you know, where do the boys, what about Boys Who Code? And I was like, it's called class. It's called school, you know, like you guys have a place to go. Like this is for girls, so we can reverse that, that stereotype that it's not, you know, it's not something that you have to have some type of biological preconceived advantage over anyone else.
Right. Now, what did she write? What struck you in her rebuttal to that manifesto? Anything that stood out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things she talks about is how his studies, the studies that he was citing, was like completely neglecting to see the studies that were done here in the United States. So girls actually score higher than boys in math and sciences here in the United States, and he fails to point that out. He also talks a lot about how like he's a proponent of racial diversity and gender diversity, and yet he doesn't do anything to deny those stereotypes or to deny the fact that they're not true. So it's almost like he is saying, oh, they exist, and yes, that's the reason why there aren't a lot of girls in CS grads. And
now, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was reading the comments on, so she posted this open letter, and then if you read towards the bottom, there are people that posted back to it. And this one guy responded and was saying, you know, how she was being opportunistic, how Deborah Sterling was being opportunistic, with posting this and how she was just looking for a way to promote her company. And it's like, she maybe mentions her company once in the entire letter.
Right.
So I just think it's like, I don't know. I feel like people are attacking the person as opposed to attacking the actual problem, which is, why do we have this gap? Why do we have this disparity? And what can we do to fix it?
Right. Now, the Google engineer, he was fired. How would you have, if you were the CEO of Google, and the current CEO is Sundar Pichai, how would you have handled it if you were the CEO?
The same way.
The same way you would have fired him?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I think there should be a zero tolerance rule for that kind of behavior. Having said that, I was at a panel of women that were at the General Assembly, which is this great place in San Francisco that offers workshops. And on the panel, one of the women said, she's a CEO of her own tech startup, and she said, we can't solve this problem unless the guys are at the table. So yes, I would have fired him, because I think that I wouldn't want that kind of idea perpetuated in the culture of my company. At the same time, I feel like the people that decided, the people that are currently at the company that don't advocate those same stereotypes that he does, I would want them at the table with me, kind of thinking about, how are we going to fix this?
Yes.
It wouldn't just be a table of women thinking about the solutions. Like, we would have to have both genders present.
For teachers. Okay, cool. So SI, St. Ignatius, it's a co-ed school. When I grew up in San Francisco, it was all boys school, and it became co-ed, and I think in the mid '90s or so, early '90s. How do the students, the high school students, see that? I mean, when they see things like that, when they see a Google engineer say things like that, do you see anything happening with the students, or what's their attitude towards girls in tech?
I've definitely, so Girls Who Code we started a Girls Who Code club at SI, and the girl who started it, Elizabeth Leong, she's a valedictorian. She graduated and is now at Cal with her majoring in CS, but she started in the hopes that to address that exact issue, that girls can't code, the sort of they call it the stereotype threat, or the imposter syndrome, that girls will never be good enough, that if they say that they're coding, that they're actually like just posers. And so we've done, I'm really proud about it, except in fact, we have a leadership club later on today, and we're talking about how are we going to grow the club? What other hackathons can we schedule? How are we going to do more hours of code? So it's definitely bloomed, which tells me that there was a need that wasn't being met, which tells me that there are girls at our school that wish they had a safe space to learn code without having to have that pressure of boys. And it's not that I don't think the boys aren't accepting. I just feel like there is this sort of underlying, like I said, this sort of insidious bias that we have, that we keep, that maybe we lack the self-awareness around, that when we see a woman or a girl coding, that there's got to be something else there, right? Oh, it's because she works really hard, or it's because, oh, she probably just doesn't know a lot about code. I don't think I wish that at some point it would just be about, hey, this person really likes coding, and I think they have a lot to bring to the table, and let's hear what they have to say. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're definitely not there yet.
Now, how many students overall, and how many girls percentage are in this Girls Who Code at the school?
Yeah, so we've grown. I would say we're around 60 to 65 members now.
Wow, okay.
Active with sports and all the other extracurriculars. We get a good group of 15 to 20 coming to every meeting.
Wow, okay.
Which is actually really good, I think, considering
That's really good.
There's so many other things to compete with. And in fact, even now, if you go into one of the electives, there will still be the sort of, we're making movements towards it not being this way, but I feel like there are definitely still more girls moving more towards the humanities or other types of electives rather than the STEM electives.
That's interesting. I read an article about the 21st century skills and several articles now. And this one article, I don't know, I could probably find a link later on, share it with you, about how STEM, it's just not about STEM for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That's going to be emphasized. It's going to be what's needed going to be in the future are the humanities, are the liberal arts skills, the interpersonal skills, and not just, I guess, the math, the science, the technology, and so on. Because a lot of the automation that's happening now and in the future, that it looks like I'm tending to now my basic research to see the humanities in a little different light now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Like I wish I remember his name. It was on a series of podcasts on design, and he said that if a college student asked him what to major in, he would say, study all the dead subjects, study like Latin, study poetry, study Shakespeare, study the humanities, and then when you graduate, go to a tech firm and learn tech outside of school. Because it's like, these aren't my words, but these are his words, like, it's like Moore's Law, right? Like the second the school starts to put it in a curriculum, in a syllabus, using a textbook, it's already outdated. It's essentially outdated because it changes so quickly. So he was like, study the stuff that's not going to change. Study social science, AP psychology, and then go out. And then in fact, he said, don't even get your graduate degree. Go to a startup. He's like, you're going to eat the same kind of food. You're still going to eat ramen.
Wow.
But at least there's a chance for you to make $1 million, right?
Right.
So I thought that was a really interesting take on, do we need the tech? Do we need the humanities? And then there's also those people that think, yeah, you need someone that majors in or is maybe an engineer, but then also has a social science background.
Right.
Because the tech skills, it is like, seriously, like you don't necessarily need like a degree in that. My brother is a software engineer and he's light years behind. He's like, I'm blown away with how fast the language has changed.
Right.
But he has the chops to kind of learn quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, I don't know how to articulate it, but I think if the skill is to be language agnostic as opposed to, or technology agnostic, but that skill of being able to acquire it quickly, that is, I think, invaluable.
Right.
To be able to just like drop this person in a situation and they can roll up their sleeves and say like, I got this, I can do it.
Yeah. Now you're gonna find that link, that episode, that show.
I'll share it with you.
Find it. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes too.
I think it's Jonathan Maeda. Now that maybe like don't quote me on that, but Maeda. I think he's the designer.
Okay.
I think he left MIT and was like, people were questioning like, why would you leave this 10-year job?
Yeah.
I think it was like because he was just, he wanted something different. He thought education should be different.
Right. Okay, so
anyway, I'll find it. Yeah.
Yeah, find it. Now you said designing. Okay, so I've been scouring the internet all about you. Again, I'm not stalking. I'm doing some research.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I saw this like a year ago in the Teachers Guild. You had something about redesigning the parent conferences. Can you talk something about that? Can you tell us and our audience what it is and what's it about?
The Teachers Guild is an awesome movement. If you guys haven't joined it, I think it's just this. It's basically a repository of the most awesome ideas I've ever seen in one place. And it was free. You started an account. And what's cool is it was a bit blended because you would join this online community, but then a few days later you'd get this invite that, oh, we're having a workshop at the D School, or come down to the most coolest one was at Autodesk. It was like, come to Autodesk and do a design thinking stint with us. So the one that I attended, which was awesome because I got to meet David Kelly.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Which, okay. So my little like.
Wait. Before you go on, who's David Kelly for the teachers who don't know who he is?
I would say he's like the godfather of design thinking, but
yes. Mm-hmm.
but really he's he and his brother wrote a book called Creative Confidence, and he started the D School at Stanford, which is like the
The
sort of
Mecca,
like
right?
mothership,
Right.
the Mecca of design thinking
Design
here
thinking.
in California and the world. And then IDEO, and then he's like also really known for IDEO, and he has a great 60 minutes interview. If you just Google like 60 minutes shopping cart, you'll see him
Right.
in the video. But yeah, so I was at this design stint. The topic was, how can we reimagine parent-teacher conferences? And I was like, all right, well, I'll go check it out. And there was only me and like 5 other teachers there. And then David Kelly walks into the room, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I immediately take my phone out because, like Filipinos, right? We want to make sure we take our picture.
Right. I would have done a selfie from far away.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. I will send you the thing so you can put it in this podcast.
Okay, please. Yeah, put in the show notes. It's awesome.
Yes, right.
Wait. So he was teaching. He was leading this workshop.
No, he wasn't. He comes walking in, and the woman that ran the workshop, she worked for the Teachers Guild. She wasn't embarrassed at all, but she was like, "This is all we got." And he was like, "What happened? Did you scare everybody away?" And I was like, "Is that David Kelly?" And
Wow.
the guy that's next to me, he worked for IDEO. He's like, "Yeah, that's David Kelly." And I was like, "Can I go over and take a picture with him?" And he's like, "I think he would like that. He'd be cool with it." So I go over, and he has this conversation where there's something about like, he says something about like, oh, CBS wants to interview me. And I come in and I'm like, can I take a picture with you? And he's like, he keeps talking. No, the thing is, he keeps talking to the woman about the CBS interview while he's taking a picture.
Oh, wow. So like, yeah, keep going. Take a picture.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah. Like not even phased.
Wow.
Not even phased by it. So I took a picture with him, and I add it to my other like photos with other geeks that I've taken pictures with. But yeah, and so one of the ideas that I threw out there was reinventing the report card. Like, what if we reimagine the report card? And so what was really cool about it is you put it on this online forum, and then people just start like saying, "Hey, that's a good idea. I like that," or like, "Have you tried this?" or "Check this out." And then it goes through this voting round, and then I guess I got upvoted, and then all of a sudden they're like connecting me with this woman in London who works for the RSA, which is the Royal Society of, oh my gosh, forgot what the A stands for, but this like amazing, almost like the IDEO in England. Mm-hmm. And she becomes my mentor, and she's like, "Hey, wow, have you tried this?" And so they connected with all these people to help build out your idea. And then I thought, okay, so I needed to create a prototype. I created a prototype using PictoChart. And then finally I was like, well, what if we get PictoChart and IDEO to work together? So I made that sort of, I was like, you'll probably get them to say yes into doing this if you guys reach out to them, because you're IDEO and you're an amazing firm. So they reached out to PictoChart. PictoChart was like, absolutely, let's do it. So then they connected me with a designer in China. Wow. Who I like had these meetings with, and she was amazing. Like, she maybe talked to me. We had she understood me and maybe asked me like 4 or 5 questions, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Is this what you want?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is." Mm-hmm. Like she asked such good questions, and then yeah, so now it's like it's a legit template in PictoChart if people want to use it to reimagine report cards.
That's awesome. You know, we before I left, we were redesigning the report card also, and
oh, cool.
I think I ran into your. That's why I was Googling it out and looking for it, and I saw your project, and I started running the idea with the administration, but I think they're not ready. We weren't ready yet. They said it was great, but it's also very forward thinking, but I think they weren't ready yet.
That totally came up, but it was so funny because the guy so I spoke to several different people at RSA in London, and the first guy I spoke to was like, he's like, in this like amazing accent, he's like, "To be honest, when I first saw your idea, I thought it was quite boring." Huh. He's like, "I thought it was quite boring, but what was compelling about it was the conversation that I think schools will have if they were to pitch this to their administration." So what I love is like, it's not the fact that it's fine that they shot it down, but it creates a medium in which for you to be able to have that conversation with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have something to look at. And then I think that's an even deeper question. Like, why aren't you ready? There's something there that you're identifying that's saying there are conditions set so that schools can move in this direction. And I think he was like, that's what is compelling about this idea. Yeah. Is that you've created something for people to have a conversation around.
It's provoking them, right?
Provoking. Yes. Yeah, it's a provocative piece to tell people to get rid of, a system or a blueprint that's been around for over 100 years. So, yeah, it's exciting.
That's cool, and I'm gonna put that link also of that the picture chart. It's pretty awesome. I like it a lot. I would love it when my kids they're at school. I would love not to see words and charts, but I really want to see the infographic style of report cards. That'd be awesome.
What did you guys end up landing on?
It's more of a classical style of report card, charts and tables and so on. I think they got the big move was putting everything online so it's accessible to the parents. So it's especially if it's like accessible on the mobile phone. So like that instead of just PDFs. So that's where they moved on, and I think because the teachers, I think they're also overwhelmed, and I know you talked about it also in that video about how the teachers, I think when I shared that idea, I think they were like intimidated with the designing part, right? The designing part of the infographics.
Yeah. And that piece is like, we're not designers, we're teachers, right? I think I actually said that in the video. It's like, how can you ask me to put some picture together when it's like, I want to think about the content that I'm going to put into this. I don't need to think about like the color schema or things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In a way, we're all designers though. Like if you think about it, like we all walk into a classroom every day and we design where people are going to sit and what they're going to do. And so yeah, it's just kind of getting people out of that mindset that like, I'm a teacher and this is what it looks like. You could be a teacher with designer skills.
Okay, so let's move on. Now, what's exciting you about Edtech these days, education in general? What's exciting you? You had design thinking, you had you guys did iPads also, correct? And Chromebooks and one-to-one?
Right, so we're one-to-one, we're thinking of going two-to-one. We're one-to-one with iPad. We're thinking of going two-to-one with iPads and a laptop device. And then in our 6th grade, we are one-to-one with Chromebooks. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So what's happening? What's the new thing happening? When I left, it was more of the flexible classroom and getting rid of the computer lab. What's happening that you see that you're excited about?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been working on, like last year, I pulled together a group of folks from industry. I think that was missing. Like we needed to hear from people from industry, because I think a lot of times as educators we think about like, here are the skills that the kids need, right? But I think that also needs to be validated by people of industry. Like, what kinds of skills do you need if you wanted to work at a place like Google, or if you wanted to work at a place like Facebook or Apple, or or even like Autodesk or an amazing art firm? Like, what kinds of skills would you need? So I pulled together this group of folks, mostly from SI's alum, because we had a good network of folks, but just people that I've met throughout the years, through the 13 years of doing this. I sat everybody around the table and we kind of came up with like, okay, here are the things that we need. And so one of the things that I'm working on for this year will be, I'm calling it my grand challenge. So this awesome organization, I don't know if you heard of them, 100K in STEM. Through the President Obama administration, their grand challenge is to have 100,000 new STEM teachers in 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
So that's like their grand challenge. And I like that idea. I was like, I need a grand challenge. I need a chart. I want to be able to like get people around this idea of a grand challenge. So I'm thinking of something around STEM, and specifically around girls and kids of color. So one of the ideas I'm thinking of is, this sort of issue that we have is that we don't have enough girls and kids of color. Like between the ages of 9 and 14, for some reason, the interest in STEM dips. The kids are super excited in grade school, and then all of a sudden in elementary school, and then they get into junior high and high school, and then it just plummets, particularly with girls and kids of color. And so why is that? Like, why are we making them bored, tired, and stressed out about those STEM subjects so much that they just don't want to do it? And so that's one of the things that I think is speaking to me that I'm really interested about. There's always like those edtech trends, right? Like augmented reality and going 2-to-1, or some people are even talking about going 3-to-1, or learning spaces and things like that. I'm shifting my role to thinking more about like issues and causes that really speak to me. And so that's going to be one of my big focuses this year.
Wow, that's awesome. The grand challenge.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about that. Yes. That's awesome. What kind of projects are there in the high schools so that other teachers in the in teaching high school, what kind of projects should they be looking for, or should be getting their kids getting into?
Yeah, definitely real world application. I'm big on anything that can prepare the students for, like we say, the sort of like cliche 21st century skills. Definitely not just about pouring content down their throats and getting them to memorize a bunch of things, but any kinds of projects that really get them to think about things in a different way. And I'm trying to coordinate. One of the classes I'm teaching in the spring is on design thinking and app development, but I'm trying to coordinate with the other STEM teachers to see like how can we work together? How does finance or how does math play into this? Or how can how can I work with engineering to get this to sort of think deeper about these problems? Because I think if you just work within that 50-minute block with one teacher, I just think it could be so much more exponential if you have different disciplines coming together, working together, and then addressing a problem together. So any ways that folks can identify a real problem, work collaboratively with their other people in their department or even outside their department, and just give kids the opportunity to work together as opposed to just planning out such a structured lesson, I think is so much more.
Can you talk about your favorite tools real quick? Some favorite tech tools or some resources that teachers can go ahead and try and use?
So one of the things that I always like to give a pitch for, I'm sure you always use it, but is EdShelf. It's like one of the things that I go to, like whenever I'm trying to look for a tool, like I'll go to EdShelf and just kind of search for a tool, and then a great number of things will come up there. It's like a nice repository of stuff. I've been really like into like just like the big health piece. Maybe it's because I'm getting older and you have kids and you're always looking at that. So Blue Filter.
What is it called?
You just get this blue filter and you place it on your laptop screen, or you place it on your iPad to take out the blue light, which is really harmful for the eyes. So I've been really big on like getting that. I know Warby Parker also just came up with these, like, you can add a blue filter to your screen, to your glasses. It's called X Screen, I think, and it's an extra $100, and you purchase it and it goes on top of your glasses. So I think that's cool.
That's cool. Yeah, these technologies, I think I agree with you about the whole, not just
balance. Yeah,
it's a balance. It's more definitely a technology, or how technology now, like the blue filter, how those can actually amplify us, but also how to really help us, not just in the learning, but also our bodies and mind, soul.
Right. Xcode, I've been learning a lot about Xcode, especially teaching my Xcode course for next spring. So gearing up for that. So I'm taking a couple of Udemy classes. So I really like Udemy, just kind of quickly
love it too.
Learning something very quickly. Some, like, in terms of books, there's a great book out there that I'm interested in getting. It's called Rest by Alex Sejun Kim Pang. I had him come out and talk to the parents about technology and
distraction addiction, right?
Yeah, distraction addiction.
Yeah.
So he just came out with a second book called Rest.
Oh, okay.
Something that I want to pick up. And then the Girls Who Code CEO just came up with a book too called, I believe it is actually, it's like the new Babysitters Club, but for code.
Huh.
Um, so, and it just made the New York Times bestseller list. So that's kind of cool. I'm
I
going
gotta
to check
check
out
that
that
out
book.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, for my daughter, maybe check it out. Um, so I would say those are my, I don't have anything like too exciting on that list.
But you're doing a lot. Also, you also have something. No, thank you for sharing that. But you
Yeah.
also have you're doing ed on conferences and
Oh my
meetups.
gosh.
You're doing
So
all
much.
this and meetups with all the industry. But can you talk about real quick about the unconferences? Because I went to it last year and I
Yeah.
couldn't do it this year. But I think it was really cool. It's a very cool thing you guys are doing.
Yeah. So this past year we kind of broke the rules with the unconference because you're not supposed to have like speakers and stuff. So we actually had a couple of speakers this year, which looking back on it, I wonder they were amazing speakers, but I wonder if we needed more, a little bit less unconference, a little bit more unstructured, because people were like, yeah, we kind of like the idea of like just getting up there and putting on a whiteboard what we want. So I like the idea of unconference getting teachers together, big whiteboard, people put up stuff that they are experts at, and then you just place them in a room and then people come together and talk about that, or they demo something, or they go learn about
Hmm.
something for about 20 minutes. And then the meetups, if you go on to Edtech Network Meetup SF, um, I've been doing that for like, I think this is my fourth year. And it's just giving a platform to people that have an idea that they want to pitch.
Right.
Most of the time, I get folks from out of the country that come to San Francisco and they come to Silicon Valley and they want to, start it big. I always think of it as like, like people go to Hollywood to try to get their way in to Hollywood. I
Hmm.
feel like my meetup is sort of like their way of getting trying to get a shoe in to the ed tech world and kind of get a peek into what that's like. So I give them 5 minutes to pitch their idea, and people come and they come with anything with like, hey, I've got this half baked idea to like, you know, to I have this company that's already has angel funding, but I'm looking for collaborators.
Hmm.
And this guy actually came up to me. Um, I was at the Y Combinator a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I don't know if you remember me, but I was at your meetup and I pitched my idea on an app for social emotional learning, and everyone encouraged me to do it. And so now I'm like CEO of my own company. It's called
Wow.
Emote Now. And I was like, what? And he was one of those people that was receiving funding through Imagine K-12, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I don't remember, but I think this is awesome. Like,
That's
I
awesome. That's very cool.
yeah,
You
because
sparked it. You sparked
I
that whole
was,
thing.
oh my gosh, he's like, I remember you, and you gave me 5 minutes to pitch my idea, and so here I am now, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, keep doing it, keep
That's
doing what you're
cool.
doing.
Give me some shares too. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I know, right? I think it's like, I think once people put something out into the world and it comes out of your mouth and you say it, somehow the universe, I think, says like, all right, let's make something about this. So giving them that stage that's important. That's important.
Okay, so we're gonna close up. Okay, so but before we do, I want to learn about what's the best advice that you received, and at the
Mm.
same time, what is your advice, your best advice to other teachers and edtech people? So let's start off with the best advice that you received.
Best advice that I've received. Gosh, I'm gonna have to throw it back at you first and hear your best advice that you've received
Well,
first.
okay, for me, for
What's
myself, and I mentioned this a few times. I really got into it. It's changed over, of course, but I think since we moved also here to Sacramento, and I was very active also in the Bay Area, but it was a bigger goal. Our grand challenge was to get a house that we can afford, and also to try things. I like the motto of more oh wells and less what ifs. It's about, and that really helps guide me also when I help teachers in their search for innovative projects and so on. Just try it out. What Forget the what ifs. Just more oh wells. If it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail. At least you know the answer, and that you can see where to tweak it and how to change it to make it better. And I like that a lot. More oh wells and less what ifs. That's mine.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's your advice. I love that. I love the idea. Yeah, because there's this idea of like fail early, fail often, right?
That's what the new tech people are saying, right? That's what is happening. Mark
Yeah.
Zuckerberg, they all say that, but it's the same. It's the same message, right?
Yeah.
But I like mine. This one is a little more granular. At least I can explain it to my kids better.
Yeah, I like that. The more oh wells instead of the what ifs.
Yeah, less what ifs.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. Um, God, there's so much out there. Like, I don't even know what I would say. I would say this one I've heard recently, so I think it speaks to me too, and it goes along what you just said. But this idea of like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I saw I got a chance to tour the Facebook campus, and I love their campus because they always have these like sayings, and it just there's something about this sort of like innovative propaganda that they put around,
right?
And so it's like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And yeah, I feel like that has always spoken to me. Like if I didn't choose information, like if I didn't go into ISQM, right, and I let all those people tell me like, you can't do it, or if I stuck with accounting because that's what my Filipino parents were like, that's consistent, don't go into education, which quite honestly at the time wasn't the best way to pay off my student loans.
Right. My parents the same thing. My mom's a nurse, so
right?
a lot of and I have a lot of nursing friends and so on, and I even majored in nursing. Right. Then I got into the physical therapy point and the exercise sports science. Then it changed into accounting, going back to the business part, and then my dad wanted to go lawyer. Then I'm like, yeah, exactly. I went to the 6-year bachelor's program.
Yep.
I kept switching, and
You self-sabotage. I think deep down we were self-sabotaging because we knew deep down this was not what we wanted to do.
Exactly. Right. I mean, our parents did it. They did it. They succeeded, but now it's our turn. We got to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So anyway, so that would be mine. That what would you do if you weren't afraid?
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about advice? Is that really be the same advice that you would give to other teachers and Edtech people, or teachers in general?
I don't know if you saw this article, but one of my colleagues, shout outs to Eric Castro, he sent this to me late last night, and I responded. But have you heard of the new, like, sort of how they're turning teachers into these sort of Kardashian geekery type folks because they're offering them, swag in exchange for them being these ambassadors in their classroom?
Oh, yeah.
Did you read that? And then there was this social media backlash. Like, people were like,
right.
No, like, I legit like Autodesk, or I legit like this app. So I would say based just coming off of reading the heels of that article, I feel like we should not forget what we're in this game for, right? The end game is what's best for the students. And I think as people in EdTech, we can get lost because there's so much junk out there. There's so much stuff being thrown at us. There's so many things evolving. Like you said, flex spaces, augmented reality, virtual, the newest Google gadget. Like, I just feel like if at the heart of it, we can honestly say like, this is good for the students, then that's what should remain true. So like, I feel like people should never lose their purpose and their focus when they're in EdTech. And I think, the classroom would be a better place for it.
Jen, before we sign off, can you share some contact information with people who want to learn more about you and your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you can do is email me at jgs@siprep.org, or you can come find me on Twitter at J3N Tech, so at Gen Tech. And then also I'll go ahead and give you a link to my YouTube channel if you want to learn Xcode. I've got some really quick, short Xcode tutorials on there. I'm building the library. So for those of y'all that are interested in making an app, check out my YouTube channel.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for joining our show. I really appreciate it. It's amazing. I do have several other topics, and I would like to get you back on the show just to get your thoughts also. All right? But thank you again. Really appreciate it. Have a great school year. Okay?
Yeah.